right, discounting all the What Culture 5s and 7s, because they are obviously the best games of football anyone's ever seen, I wanted to try and pick something here that like made me look knowledgeable and old and that I'd seen it all and I'm a bit dyed in the wool and see it all, but I can't get past a game from this season, and I'm worried the recency bias clouds it slightly, but like, gun to my head, hand on my heart, I genuinely can't think of a football match that I've walked out of on a bigger high than Newcastle United 3, Everton 2 from season just gone. Yes, it was absolutely excellent because it had so many elements of, oh, here we bloody go as a football fan. And like, I'm a Newcastle fan, I can't be like, oh, when we went to Wembley and won the cup for the 4th year in a row, or when we lifted the Premier League on the last day. I've got nothing like that in my back catalogue. I can purely go with spite and enjoying things purely for how miserable it have made people who really deserved to be miserable. And I'll set the scene for you. It is a rainy October, I can't even know when it was now. It was a horrible, horrible rainy day in Newcastle upon Tyne. I had my season ticket seat up in the Gallagher end, the famous Gallagher end. And we came out the blocks. We'd not been attacking all that well. Rafa's teams were kind of set up to be functional rather than they were flair-based. Tricky, yeah. Rafa's tricky mags, tough to beat. And we set out and we actually looked quite open and quite energised. And we got at Everton, we had a couple of good chances, couldn't find the net. And then lo and behold, they go up the other end. First attack, first chance, 1-11. And as a football fan, you're thinking, oh, here we bloody go. Then, still keep at them, still get at them. There's a break in the box. Jordan Pickford tackles, hugs Solomon Rondon, drags him to the ground, not sent off. And you're like, oh, here we bloody go. I've got the ref on my side. Then Matt Ritchie steps up to take the penalty, misses the penalty, and you're thinking, oh, here we bloody go. And then Everton go straight up the other end and make it 2-0, and you're thinking, here we bloody go. Why can't I just have nice things? Even when we're playing well, we can't get the bounce of the ball. We can't get anything off the referee. We can't even score a penalty. Pickford's giving it that to the fans behind the goal. And all that. And like, well, I'm wound up. We're losing 2-0. This afternoon is a complete write-off. And then they kept at it, they kept working. Another signature of Rafa's side, just played their little arts out, and they got one back, didn't they? Out of nowhere, they got one back, and you're thinking, it's only 2-1 this, and they are actually playing quite well. Everton's heads absolutely wobbled, rolled, and fell off. Jordan Pickford practically threw one into his own goal. 2 massive raptures of cheers from the Gallagher end, who've been giving it that to him, been getting in his head the whole game, and he's like, oh, has a wobble, spills one back out in front of Jose Perez, tucks it in for an equaliser, and you're thinking, there we go. You don't get a lot in this life. You certainly don't get a lot as a Newcastle fan. I'll take that. Salvage that. We should have got something from this game, but we've dragged it back to 2-2 against admittedly a much better side. I'll take that 2-2. But they didn't stop there, did they? And there's this moment, if you ever find it, right, when Perez is celebrating the equaliser, Isaac Hayden runs up to him and Dummett, and he grabs them both. He's like, nah, we've got them. And he drags them back from celebrating, and they sprint back to the centre circle. 3 minutes to go from time. Get a corner. It's flicked back into the air. 3 of them are offside, but who cares at this point? And Perez absolutely takes the paint off the ball from 2 yards and just buries it. And there was limbs, there was bodies. You don't get that at home games. That's away game pattern. Men kissing men, strangers kissing strangers. It was absolutely beautiful. Every single bit of it. Lovely. And I walked out of that game going, do you know what? Football's all right, isn't it?
The best match I've ever seen live, I was going to go for the easy option and go for the 2014. I'm an Aberdeen fan, so I was going to go for the 2014 League Cup final. We beat Inverness Caledonian Thistle on penalties at Celtic Park. Great day out, but doesn't come from the heart. It's not the best game I've ever seen live. So a little bit of context before I tell this story. Aberdeen Football Club used to be not quite a European powerhouse, but a big enough deal. When Alex Ferguson was in charge, we did well in Europe. We won the Cup Winners' Cup and the Super Cup in the early 80s. We were doing well, but we fell off pretty badly. By the time 2007, 2008 rolled around, while we were doing well in the league, of course, stature of the club had fallen significantly. Obviously, all those honours don't go away, but you know, you look at a Scottish team that's not Rangers or Celtic faring in Europe, and you think, well, they're just going to get pumped. So we qualify for the then UEFA Cup that season. So we get through, we beat Dnipro of the Ukraine. Really good home performance, really good away performance. Darren Mackie, legend. Get into the group stage. And at this point, 3 teams qualify from the group stage. But the problem is, that group stage includes quite a few good teams. You've got Atletico Madrid, Lokomotiv Moscow when Branislav Ivanovic was playing for them. Panathinaikos, I believe, and FC Copenhagen. You look at that and think, we're going to get pumped out of this. We didn't. we somehow clawed our way through. I believe we got a draw against Panathinaikos or Moscow. We got beat off Atletico Madrid. It came down to a game at Pittodrie where we faced FC Copenhagen, battered us the first half, not a chance, kept it 0-0. Then we won 4-0. It was amazing. So we get through to the next phase and think, knockout stage of the UEFA Cup, the Europa League. We're Aberdeen. We don't get this far. We don't get into this competition enough as it is, but we don't get this far when we do. We've done enough. No matter who we play here is a bonus. Draw comes up. Bayern Munich. And the whole thing, I find the whole thing about small clubs playing massive clubs to generate a better, I find that all very condescending, but oh my God, what an occasion this felt. So for context as well, we'd actually defeated Bayern Munich on our route to winning the Cup Winners' Cup in 82-83, put them out, we beat them 3-2 over 2 legs at the quarter-final stage. So something of a historic night because that was a big game when we put out this giant of European football en route to get into the final. But when you play Bayern Munich and you're Aberdeen, even when you're at home, you expect to get pumped, don't you? So you know what? Me and a couple of my mates, we got tickets. Of course, how could we miss it? Biggest sporting event in the city in ages. And we thought, you know what? We're just going to have a really good time. We're going to watch Luca Toni and Miroslav Klose and Sebastian Schweinsteiger, all these world-class players. And we'll probably take a lick, but it'll be a fun night out. 20 minutes or so pass. We've been pummeled. They probably should have scored. It was just a drenching. The ball gets into the Bayern Munich box, it bobbles around a lot, struggling for control, it feels like it's in there for about 5 minutes, in reality it's about 10 seconds, but time slows down when there's jolts of excitement going through the stadium and you can feel it growing and growing. It falls to Josh Walker, a total unknown we'd signed on loan from Borough maybe just a few days before. He's currently playing for Edinburgh City in the Scottish League 2, so that tells you about how Josh Walker's career panned out. Curls it from the edge of the box, round the keeper, Michael Rensing, I think it was at the time, 1-0. Place erupts, the loudest noise I have heard in my life. Jumping up and down, kissing your mates, hugging complete strangers, people falling over chairs, pandemonium. Aberdeen are beating Bayern Munich 1-0 in the UEFA League. I've said the wrong thing twice there, the UEFA Cup. Of course, they scored again 8 minutes later. And you're like, oh, well, we had our 8 minutes on top. Klose puts it in the back of the net. And you're just bummed because, you've given away this lead. 40-odd minutes. Aberdeen, 2-1, Sonny Aluko. Wonderful moment of skill. Chips it around, or controls it around 2 Bayern defenders. Slots it home. Absolute raptures. Doesn't quite beat the jump or the bounce from the first goal because how the hell could it? The euphoria burning through that building was absurd. It was ridiculous. It really made me fall in love with football again after a couple of years away from the season ticket scene and so forth. We conceded in the second half. I think it was Hamid Altintop scored on 50-odd minutes, but we held out. We took Bayern Munich to Germany with a 2-2 draw. And that for a club of our stature, particularly considering where we are now, in that we can't even we get to the qualifying stage of the Europa League, we get bunted out. To think that, 11 years ago, we took Bayern Munich to the brink at home is absurd. Of course, we got pumped 5-1 in the second leg. Steve Lovell got a late consolation goal, but it's just one of those nights I'll never forget. It really is special. You get, kind of cynical when you hear people talking about big European nights and all this stuff, but, Aberdeen have given me so many of those over the years, less so in recent years, and that, as well as the Copenhagen game from the same campaign when Jamie Smith scored the best goal I've ever seen live. Yeah, incredible stuff.
Best match I've ever been to live. I'm a very sentimental person and loved seeing my dad happy, as I still do to this day. So it's a memory with him at a match. It was actually Rangers versus Parma in 1999, the 11th of August 1999. I remember it like it was yesterday. Champions League qualifier at Ibrox. I think there was like 49,000 people there or something like that. And quite a few Parma fans as well, which I remember because we were sitting quite close to the away end and they were very, very noisy and it was a great atmosphere. And it was also in the days when Rangers had, they were more cultured than we are now. So they had like a brass section and all sorts of like drums and stuff like that. And it was great. It was a really like a carnival atmosphere. Dick Advocat was the manager and he was like the little general and basically his team, he made them run from pillar to post and it was just awesome to see. Best Rangers team I've ever seen personally was that one in 1999. But we beat Parma 2-0. which I'm not sure will ever happen again. In fact, I'm at least 99.9% sure it won't. I don't think either Rangers or Parma are getting anywhere close to the Champions League anytime soon. But it was a qualifier, we beat them 2-0, and I just remember knowing that we were going to win from the first minute. I just remember my dad saying, "What do you think the score's going to be?" And I was like, "Oh, 2-0, 3-0, we might even win 4-0. So, just buzzing to be there. Like, because I remember walking up the stairs, and this sounds like a really strange thing to say because it's disgusting, and I'm now a vegetarian, not because of this, but it's even more disgusting now to think of walking up the stairs, smelling the bovril, smelling the horrible pies that they all eat and stuff like that. And I just, as soon as I walked up the stairs, I saw this guy crumbling this pie and like lovingly in his hands, and I saw the pitch and I saw all the fans and the colours, and I was just like so buzzing to be there. And I looked up at my dad, and he was like so excited, you could see it in his face. And in the 19 years since, slowly but surely that excitement has been sapped from us. But what a game it was. Tony Vidmar, of all people, Australian hero, scored the opening goal, and it's the loudest cheer I've. If you watch it on YouTube, it almost like shatters the microphone. It's that loud. It's just like the fans were so excited, and there was an expectation about the team at that point. I remember turning to my dad after that again and saying, "I think I'm right, we're going to like destroy them." And he knew how good a team Parma were. They had like Thuram, Cannavaro, who actually got sent off for what is not a red card. He basically he ran in front of Rod Wallace, like blocked him off, booking at best. Referee straight up there, like what a guy. Still to this day, that referee is my hero. Red carded him, Cannavaro, can't believe it, he's been sent off. My dad said to me there, he was like, "We're going to win. We're going to like win handsomely here." In the second half, Claudio Reyna, an American internationalist who was a great player for Rangers, really underrated, scored the second, and I just remember Neil McCann laying it off to him. It was a really clever touch actually, because it looked like he was either going to put the head on it or maybe spin and shoot himself. Ball just came down to him, he touched it, Reyna blasted it into the net. And I remember all I could think of was my friends at school, because at that point in my life, I know it's hard to believe, but I didn't have a beard. And I looked exactly like Claudio Reyna. And like that says a lot about him, because I was literally like 11 years old. And I just remember like, "Yeah, that's me scoring that goal, yeah!" And turned to my dad again, and he was just like, he's never really been one to show a lot of emotion, my dad, apart from the time where Rangers won 9 in a row and he punched a hole in the ceiling. This was one of those moments. I just turned to him and I could just see him like, "Yeah, this is the business, this is what we want." And at that point, I just remember thinking, we're going to win the Champions League, because Parma had such a good team. And obviously we didn't win the Champions League, but we qualified for the group stage, and it was just great days. And I remember afterwards, my dad took me to McDonald's. And then what was really good about that day as well was my dad he's a musician, so he had to go to a rehearsal after the game, and he dropped me off with my uncle, who asked me, "Have you had anything to eat?" No. So back to McDonald's we went. So Rangers won 2-0, I get 2 McDonald's, and it was just the best. And hopefully, pardon my little prop, but hopefully the future's so bright for Rangers that we're going to get back to the Champions League someday. Even the Europa League would do. Please. I'll go to church every day. Honestly, God, please, just give us back a player like Tony Vidmar. Please.
It's a strange one, this, because even though I'm from Liverpool and I grew up around Liverpool, I was never fortunate enough to actually go to Anfield quite regularly when I was young. It was still to this day, it's ridiculously difficult to actually get to a game. But I did go to 3. My first ever game at Anfield was actually a Merseyside derby. I think it was in 2000 or 2001, I can't quite remember, a 0-0 draw. It was still a great time though, I had an amazing time. My dad got very angry at the people in front who kept on standing up, and my little legs couldn't see any of the match. It was just really depressing. And then the next match was against Charlton, which was a 1-0 draw. I can't remember that match. And then the next time I went to Liverpool, it was also against Charlton yet again, but it was the last time that Robbie Fowler ever played for the club. And growing up, my hero for Liverpool was Michael Owen, which is an insane thing to say now, given what transpired after he left Liverpool. But back in the day, he was my absolute hero. And Robbie Fowler was kind of, when you think of like the Liverpool legends, he obviously had Dalglish and Rush. But then when, you know, we were in the 90s, Fowler was, my dad always called him God. And when we signed Fowler again, and I did not understand the big thing, I'm like, who's Robbie Fowler? What's going on with Robbie Fowler? I remember him from the treble winning campaign, but it was like, when you're that young, you don't really pick up on stuff. And then we got him back and he's like, Ewan, God's just come home. God's just come home. And I'm like, okay, and big things now. He's got to displace Peter Crouch of all people. That's not happening. And lo and behold, he has a very kind of mixed time upon his return. It was still absolutely amazing, though. You look back on it, it's kind of like a fairy tale ending to, you know, he obviously went on to play for different clubs and stuff, but it was such a nice time. And I went to see his last game ever for Liverpool, which was in 2007 in another match against Charlton. Hey. And it was a 2-2 draw again, because every time I go see Liverpool at Anfield, it's a draw, which is probably why I haven't come back, because I'm too afraid of jinxing anything. But yeah, you know, that was a great time as well. And it's strange, my memories of Liverpool, I've always had, the most amazing times I've had with the club have been experiencing the atmosphere around games. My dad took me to see the parade for the treble-winning season, where we kind of got to see the tour bus. I got to see the likes of Sami Hyypiä and obviously Steven Gerrard, and that's incredible as well when you're that young. And then kind of going into my later years when I'm moving away from the Northwest, it's always been nice being able to savour the atmosphere, going back to Liverpool and just being in the pub and having a good time there. But in a kind of weird kind of way of kind of looking at the way I've like grown through the years, the best match that I've ever been to has actually been a Newcastle against Manchester City match, which happened last season. And that's kind of, honestly, it's the weirdest melting of minds ever, and it was a privilege to get to go there. And at this point in time, obviously in the season, I thought, you know, we have a chance. We've kept it close to Man City this entire time. Didn't think we necessarily at the start of the season thought we were going to win. I thought City were too good, but then we kind of got to that point in the campaign. We were thinking, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can actually do this. And then, honestly, after when the first 2 minutes went up, and you know, I think it was Aguero scored, like the most ridiculous. It was like 2 minutes, like it was like 30 seconds. I was like, oh gee, that ain't good. And then the scenes when Richie scored that penalty in the second half, I looked at you, Adam Wilborn. We locked eyes, and I was like, we're gonna win the league. And then, and obviously, you know, then Leicester happened, and then West Ham happened, and then Everton happened, and then Manchester United happened. But whatever, the actual experience at St James's Park is one of the probably the best football match I've ever been to. So massive props to St James's Park and Newcastle United for giving me that experience.
I'm a rubbish football fan because I'm a neurotic mess. Like, I know a lot of people like love and thrive on the drama in those 10 minutes where you need an equaliser or a winner in a really critical game, and you just want to be part of the momentum that carries your team forward to that point. No, I hate that. I just like, you know, a humping. Most do, but I really like a humping in the football context. Therefore, my favourite ever match was just a lovely, crisp winter afternoon in Newcastle, 2003, where we hammered Spurs 4-0.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why I loved it so much, it wasn't just like a really, like, just pleasurable afternoon of just no tension, no drama, none of the things that make football, because I'm so weird. Like, I really am a weird guy. It was getting a little bit tetchy for about 40 minutes, I believe. And then Laurent Robert plucked the ball out of thin air, 25 yards out, volley, top corner. I mean, that's quintessentially football. Then in the second half, we had them by that point. We had them, Laurent Robert, 30 yards out with a rocket, top corner, and then he laid on two of the best corners you've ever seen, allowing Alan Shearer to complete the hammering. 4-0, no drama, no real football, just a hammering. I'd love that every single day, and I've picked the wrong club. Like, I should be a Glory supporter, really, but like, I love the misery. Hate the drama, love the misery, that's me.
This didn't take a lot of thinking about, to be perfectly honest. There's not many times I can talk about Chesterfield playing in an FA Cup semi-final. The year is 1997, I think April 1997. I get to go to Old Trafford to watch my beloved Chesterfield play Middlesbrough in the FA Cup semi-final. I was there at the game at Saltergate for the quarter-final against Wrexham. We're there, and to be honest, I don't think anyone really gave us a prayer. And I was a naive young fan. I even built my very own with my dad's help, my very own crooked spire hat made out of papier-mâché to wear for this semi-final. Got in the paper and everything. Yeah, absolutely. But we went 2-0 up. we went 2-0 up. I think it was Andy Morris bundled in a goal, and Sean Dyche, I wonder what happened to him. He scored a penalty for us, our captain, and we thought, this is it. We're going to the FA Cup final. It's going to be CFC, Chelsea, versus CFC. It's going to be unbelievable. We probably still got battered in the final, but anyway. Because David Ellery is a knobhead, we scored another goal, but he didn't give it because I hate him forever. He's yeah, 100%. He crossed the line. John Howard hit a ball, it bounced off the crossbar, across the line, back out again. They didn't give it. In the midst of all this, Middlesbrough get 2 goals back. Fabrizio Ravanelli, a player alongside Juninho I will eternally hate, despite how everyone was, romanticises their time in the Premier League or Premiership or whatever it was then. Fabrizio Ravanelli scored. Craig Hignett scored a penalty for them. We go to extra time, and you all know what happens after that. That's it. I think Gianluca Festa scored for them, 3-2. I distinctly remember, I can honestly go back into my 8-year-old self and remember sitting there, because I think he scored on about the 100th minute, and I sat there and I thought, this is it. This is how being a football fan is. It's just constantly depressing. And I remember we got into the final few minutes, Emerson was playing for them, just running it into the corner. Anyway, I remember sitting down in my seat, and I think I may have even been whispering, and it's all gone quiet over here, to myself, as I look up to see a ball bounce in the penalty area. Jamie Hewitt, I don't know what he was doing in the penalty area at that time, heads it, and it's not really a bullet, it just sort of loops slowly into the goal in the 119th minute to equalise against Middlesbrough, to take us to a semi-final replay back in the days when they did those sorts of things. We all went crazy. I burst into floods of tears. The blue and white drained from my face into my little Chesterfield top that I was wearing at the time. It's the most emotional I've ever been at a football game. It's the most memorable game I've ever been at, and it's the greatest live match I've ever been at. And I wrote a letter to Jamie Hewitt, and he came to our school the next week to say hello to everyone. It is the greatest match I've ever been to. There's not many other Chesterfield games that even get anywhere close to something like that, and I will never, ever forget it. F*** you, David Ellery.